An in-depth look at ghouls from Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. What is a ghoul? A ghoul is a mortal that drinks a vampire's blood, not to be confused with a blood bond. A blood bond is formed from drinking from a single vampire on 3 separate occasions. A ghoul is created upon drinking from a vampire once. And once this blood is ingested, the aging process stops immediately and the drinker is just intoxicated with the vampire's blood, or vitae. Ghouls are most often used as retainers. How is a ghoul created? All a vampire has to do is produce a rouse check's worth of vitae. For approximately a month, the mortal gains the first dot in the vampire's highest rated discipline and a single level 1 power that the vampire possesses. The aging process halts and sometimes even sets the clock back a few years, and the ghoul now heals twice as fast unless the wounds are caused by fire. Unlike the embrace and blood bonds, vampire blood does retain its ghoul-sustaining properties for a few days while stored in an airtight container and not exposed to the sunlight. Vampires usually only provide their vitae in such a manner after having established a proper blood bond with a ghoul. This leads to the question, can a ghoul use a power above level 1? The answer is yes. Draught of elegance or similar powers, alchemical effects, and other causes can give a ghoul the ability to use higher level disciplines, but at a cost. The ghoul takes aggravated damage to their health instead of making a rouse check. Ghouls do not have blood pool points or hunger rating to draw from, so they just damage their bodies to gain the effect. How to control a ghoul? Ghouls are essentially a breach of the masquerade. Having them under control is very important. The easiest way is through a blood bond, created from the ghoul drinking vampiric blood regularly. As a player, your main objective would be to make sure that the ghoul is not going to take a drink of your blood and then run off and tell everyone that they had vampire blood and look what I can do. Give them blood nightly for 3 nights so the bond is strong. Then continue feeding them regularly from there. To keep the blood bond strong and the ghoul with abilities, they need to feed at least once a month. Once the ghoul has drank 6 times from the vampire, it will be loyal to the very end. Just keep in mind that forming the bond requires the person to drink directly from the vampire. Each drink will make the next easier for the thrall to drink, but those first 2 might be difficult. How many ghouls can you have? Page 234 says that the vampire can blood bond as many ghouls as they can manage. When first changing a mortal to a ghoul, they require a stain as well as a rouse check. Then it just becomes a monthly rouse check to sustain that ghoul. If the kindred has 5 ghouls, then every month the player has to make 5 rouse checks. Now this can be spaced out, making it not as much of a problem mechanically, but there's no getting around the management of a ghoul, let alone more than one. A single, fully bonded ghoul would act like a lover or a very fond admirer at the very least. Having multiple ghouls would be like having a room full of them. Each one would become jealous of the others if not enough time is spent with them. Your request to not allow them to harm one another would stand, but they could test that order if pushed. All players and storytellers should remember this when more than one ghoul is in play for a character. Keeping them away from one another without knowing about each other could also be a little bit of a safe bet, but how long can a person keep that up? How to use a ghoul. As I stated earlier, the best way to use a ghoul is as a retainer. Ghoul retainers begin at 2 dots and go up to 3 dots. These are the best retainers as they will do anything asked of them once the bond is in place, and if not misused. If a ghoul were to fight the bond, it is possible for them to do so, but extremely difficult if not impossible. This is why they should not be mistreated. They can do things for your character in the day and assist you if needed at night. Even if their power is basically limited to level 1 power, they are all very powerful compared to a mortal. This makes them excellent guards through the day. If a social power, they can bring themselves up in the workforce and earn positions with that benefit for your character. They can deal with mortal issues while you are out with your coterie doing kindred business. There is no end to their usefulness. How to create a ghoul. I create ghouls the same way I would a retainer. To start with, what is their purpose? Because you do not want to just say, I want a ghoul just because. What are the details of that person? What is it they do for you? Are they there just to show when you're going out on the town? Are they your protector through the day? Are they your house servant? Or are they something else entirely? Who are they? Once the ghoul's purpose is known, then flesh out the details of the ghoul. What is their name? What do they look like? What do they do for a living? How do they perform their purpose? This is where you want to flesh out details that can lead to statting out the ghoul. Are they college educated, street smart? Are they very observant like Sherlock Holmes? Then comes the hardest part, putting all these ideas into game terms. I would stat the ghoul out per retainer and pre-made stats on page 185 of the core book. Be sure to put advantages in place to supplement their purpose. If you just wanted a ghoul to run day errands for you and to be arm candy in public, then you're not going to choose things that don't flow with what those objectives are. Pick flaws, and I usually make a quirk for the ghoul to make them stand out. So for example, if the ghoul's primary purpose is to run errands a day and possibly arm candy at night, I might make the ghoul flirtatious for everyone. They have learned that they can get away with more by being desired by everyone, including the one they are bound to. Another idea for a quirk might be to play dumb, even though they're not unintelligent. People make mistakes and let their guards down when around people they do not feel threatened against. They do this often, that they just seem ditzy or just a little slower than most. Once statted out, take your highest level discipline and then give the ghoul a level 1 power from that discipline that you also own. How to roleplay a ghoul. This, of course, is just for the storytellers, but it is insightful for players as well if they'd ever want to play one as a character. The retainer is the second main character after the player character, as they should be involved a little bit, even if not included within the story. With the stats, their purpose, their flaws, and quirk of some kind, the storyteller should have a perfect idea who the ghoul is and how they would act under any given situation. If not included in a story, they should have a small part in an opening scene with the character, or at least a note, a text, or a phone call. The player should have some kind of bond with their ghoul, and all role-playing should center around the relationship. If it's platonic, they'd act like best friends. If it's romantic, they'll act like a couple, or any other type of relationship that the character has with their ghoul. Just always keep in mind that if a player treats the ghoul like a piece of equipment that just has a purpose of doing as it's told, the ghoul will still be bound to the character and will thrive for any attention that they can get. Ever have a crush on someone that had no interest in you? Imagine that to such a degree that you would do anything for them and feel reciprocation whenever they called upon you and asked you to do something for them. Eventually, a normal person would start seeing themselves as just being used, but the blood bond holds the thrall and thoughts that this is just how vampires show love in return. For the player, their ghoul would be more like Rose from 2.5 Men. Can you have an animal as a ghoul? Why, yes you can. The issues then come to one thing. How do you control Fido even if he is bound? This has a simple answer if you have the discipline animalism. Without the discipline, it would be more of a hassle than it would be worth. No matter how much an animal adores you, it would have to be trained to do the basic things. If you just wanted a pumped up dog or a bear for a guard animal, great. But anything other than that, and you can just forget it. Animalism, on the other hand, at level 1 creates a familius, which is essentially a ghoul animal that the character has a mental link with. This allows other animalism powers to work with it as well, and it also allows the ghoul to understand simple commands such as stay and come here. At level 2, the character can get feral whispers, which allows the vampire to commune with beasts and even summon them. As you can see, this is where it's at if you want to have an animal ghoul. Can a ghoul break the bond? Again, yes, but unlikely if any care at all is given to the ghoul. In order to break the bond, the thrall has to reduce the blood strength to 0 by avoiding the regent for an extended time. So each month no blood is given, the bond strength drops by 1. They must then successfully make a defiance roll, which is a resolve plus intelligence versus the bond strength, once per session to do so, or more often if the storyteller judges that something has recalled the regent to the thrall's mind. Now, few thralls can resist this long, especially if the regent actively comes looking for them. I hope you enjoyed this video and was able to learn something new, or at least picked up on some ideas that you can use in your own games.